Hello and welcome to the Line Pull Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about crane school versus on-the-job training and versus apprenticeship, which is union. With me today, co-hosting is Chris, Crane Guy 76 on TikTok. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, how y'all doing this evening? Great to be here.
And we have Cariana.
Hey there, happy to be here.
And we have our favorite person, Travis.
Oh, I appreciate that, Dave. That's like the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
The nicest thing I've ever said to you.
Oh,
Okay.
I mean, we're just
like
throwing it out there, man. But I am happy to be back for another one of these podcasts.
Well, we're glad to have you, Travis. Really,
All right.
we are.
Oh, cool.
So, I understand that you have a new kind of boom truck you want to talk about or something like that.
I do. I was scrolling through the news the other day, and I come across this article that National Crane, and I mean these aren't new styles of cranes, but National Crane came out with another one of tractor-mounted cranes, which is you take your traditional semi-tractor. Typically, it's a day cab. I've seen some up in Canada where they can get away with the weight laws that you'll put sleepers on them, and you can put even bigger, like 40-ton boom truck swing cabs on them. But here in America, it's a semi-tractor mixed with typically it's a neck breaker boom truck. Now this one's a little kind of a special model version because they got the length of the boom chopped off, but more or less it's like just a combination of a boom truck and a semi because it's got the crane attachment and it's also got a fifth wheel plate so you can pull trailers around, flatbed, step decks, double drops, what have you.
And who makes this?
A lot of manufacturers do make them. Manitex makes them. National. The article that I saw was National because this is one of the bigger ones you're going to find out in America. This one that I'm looking at right here is a 30-ton, an MBT 30H-2, which this is one of their standard net breakers. It's got 110. Well, the boom truck MBT 30H has 110 feet of stick, 30 tons, and probably one of their larger stand-up boom trucks. What they did is they revamped this model, chopped about 9 feet of stick off, so it's still a 3-section, but now instead of 110 feet, it's got 69 feet, and mounted on a semi-tractor and put a fifth wheel hitch behind it.
So what is its towing capacity?
Well, it's got a tandem axle, so it's probably grossing out at 80,000 pounds unless you want to permit the load. The disadvantage that I see here is that this, crane assembly probably has some heft to it, so it's going to cut into like what your gross rating is. But other than that, it'll scale out at 80,000. I've seen these used in the oil field. These are fairly popular in the oil field. The flyer that I'm looking at here does advertise for taxi crane service. So you can haul air units, pipe. I've seen tanks moved on these. So you can self-unload. It's got 69 feet of stick with a 90 feet of picking radius or 65 feet of picking radius, which pretty much puts you at the very back of a 48-foot flatbed that you're pulling. And at 65 feet at the back of the trailer, the crane's good for 7,300 pounds, give or take your deduction. So you're probably looking at about picking 3,000 pounds at the back of the trailer.
Cool.
These cranes, I mean, they're one of the cranes you're not going to find unless it's in a niche. Because my take on tractor-mounted cranes is you're losing the capacity of a crane, and you're losing the weight of semi. So granted, you only have to send one vehicle to go do a job. Let's say whatever that job happens to be. But there's not a lot of places where you're going to need a vehicle like this. But in their niche, sure they are fulfill quite the role because now you're cutting down your costs by only sending one guy and one vehicle.
I could see where that would be useful if you wanted to get a frac location set up and ready in advance before, like, the crane that was going to come in and do the wire line and coil. You could send one of these boom trucks out and then just have your stacks already put together. Because, I mean, that would save so much time if they were to do that in advance.
What kind of capacity are you going to need to do these frac stacks, Chris?
Quite honestly, you could build them in singular components like the flow cross, the master valve, the secondary hydraulic, um, maybe even a goat head or the nipple up stack for wireline. You could either build those in two components at a time, depending on capacity, or you could build them individually, which would take a little extra time, but it could definitely be done probably at a much cheaper cost than bringing in, like, just say a 165, 2 days early to get a pad ready, where you could bring this crane in and have it deliver and set its own components. But as far as weight,
I'm
Yeah,
staring
I
at
don't
the.
think it would be able to do the monolines.
Yeah, I don't think it could do the monoline, to be honest.
Because I'm staring at the chart right here, and let's say you were to put the crane like right on the pad, right on the target. So say, not including the footprint, we'll call it 15 feet of radius. If you can get right on top of it, with 31 feet of stick out, you're looking at 27,000 pounds.
See, we're talking right at capacity.
Yeah, if you were to push out 51 feet to try to get you some height, you're looking at 25,000 pounds.
Yeah, these zipper pods because you build the monoline. The monolines themselves are like 15, 16,000. So, and then you got the zipper pod in the back, and once you get that monoline on, you have to pick that zipper pod up with the monoline and the valves on it. So you're already looking at 28, 29,000 right there.
And one application, especially in the oil field that I had seen for this, was like drill pipe. Let's say, you got a trailer load of drill pipe, and you need to unload it out a staging area, wherever where you don't have a forklift. Because I know a forklift is probably the fastest, easiest way to do it, or a loader with forks. But I mean, let's say center of trailers at 35 feet, this thing is capable of picking up about 10,500 pounds, which you could get a fair number of strands with each pick.
Yeah, but the thing there, Travis, is when you rig pipe, you usually do a double basket or a double choke, whichever one you want to do. But you risk bending the pipe. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, nothing says you can't do the double basket on a spreader bar to pick this off the truck with.
Yeah, but when you get that drill pipe in a bundle, when you get it you know how pipe. Once it tightens up, it's going to go into a circle.
I've pulled plenty of strands out of gondolas before.
Yeah. Now, it could probably do maybe the rat hole or the mouse hole. That would be a good job for it.
But just keep in mind, Dave, that this is it's towing its own trailer. It's only going to come with so many components. I think it could maybe send it out with one extra traditional float, and it could put two stacks together from one location. And it may have to rig down and move around to set the zipper manifold like you're talking about. But I do see where this could be beneficial, as, again, more for a tow prep situation where you're just trying to save the cost of bringing you or I in to do it.
Yeah.
Last time I saw these were a lot on the finishing of the wellhead. A lot of guys, they would have, let's say, a fleet of three trucks loaded with 400-barrel production tanks, and one of these tractors would be this crane. So you're hauling these production tanks, the big 12-foot by, I don't know, 16 feet tall tanks from the manufacturer out to site. This is what you would use, to pull them off the trucks, get them stacked up, staged, and head on back to the house with.
Yeah, the production trees, maybe a pipeline application. But I just don't see it doing regular frac valve work like monoline work before.
Honestly, I don't either, and I also don't see them doing much taxi work around town because they just don't have the reach.
Oh yeah.
So, like I said, these are the type of cranes that they're very specific.
Now, does this crane come with a jib?
No, it does not come with a jib.
Okay.
So, all right, but that's pretty much all I got on these little tractor mount boom trucks.
You got any thoughts, Cariana?
I think they could be beneficial, like where I'm at, we do a lot of wind turbines. I think they could be beneficial for building, the crawlers that we use on the actual turbines. Because, sometimes it's too muddy to get another hydro out there that can even reach or have the power without, building like a telecrawler or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe on a lease road application or something.
Right.
But with that, we're going to move into our topic. And that topic today is going to be crane schools versus on-the-job training versus apprenticeship, which is union training. So I am from the old school. I broke out. Our last episode was breaking out, but I broke out as a rigger, and I rigged for 6 years chasing the hook. And the company I worked for would never break me out. They said I was too valuable as a truck driver, rigger. So I had enough. I quit, went to another company, and they put me right in a crane. And I haven't looked back since. So, but how about you, Travis?
Well, my crane operating career started in the military. And that was, I got seat time and kind of worked hands-on with my NCOs in the Army Reserves. So on every drill weekend when we do PMCS and put all the equipment through its paces, I was right up there with our senior NCO that was the crane operator, and we did a bunch of stuff, and I oiled for him for about 2 years before he moved on, and I took over the crane when he left and stuff like that. And then when I went to on the civilian side, I drove truck for been going on about 11 years, and hired onto a crane and rigging heavy haul company as a driver. Worked my way through that, got up into the heavy haul stuff like that. But as a driver, you work very close with the crane operators, so working with them and being ambitious and showing initiative, getting up with these other operators, jumping up there, helping set mats and helping them rig up and helping rig the loads that you're hauling out there. A lot of these guys, hey, this guy's pretty good hand. So I told him I had crane operating experience in the military. I had been sent to crane operating school at Fort Leonard Wood through the military. And so I was able to join the union as a journeyman operator. Doesn't mean they threw me in a crane. I still spent a year under the hook, learning how the civilian side does it and understanding the differences between the Army and the civilian side. Plus, I had to get my civilian certification before I was finally allowed. And then once I allowed to get my own crane.
Now, Chris, me and you have worked together, and we've had we've known each other for maybe 12 years now. and you're a pretty good hand. I'm a pretty good hand, and I know some of your background, but these guys, they may not know all your background. So just give us a brief rundown of how you got in and how you transitioned into the crane.
Well, I come up under the tail end of the old school. I was non-union. I'm from the Gulf Coast, where the union isn't quite as strong as it is on the East Coast, the North, or the West Coast. And you kind of had to find an opportunity to find somebody that was willing to teach you. And I very luckily found that, because back then we didn't have the trade schools that we have available today. It was on the job training, but you had to find somebody that found you worthy of their time. And I got very fortunate. I had some people take me under their wing. They put me in a galleon. They put me on a track hoe and a rubber tire, just to see if I could keep up.
Yeah.
But I did do on the job training for my career, and then later went to what's called ABC school, which is Associated Builders and Contractors, um, for classes.
Yeah.
And even that, just, it taught me the fundamentals, but I
Just
was
didn't go
learning
far
real
enough.
world applications on the job. And that's kind of how I came up. Tail end
Now-
of the old school.
Yeah. Now, my experience, I've been in the industry a long time. I'll be 49 years old this year. So, I've seen a lot of operators come through, young ones, and they go to crane school. And they go there and they get their certification. One guy come up, he had every certification possible except for tower crane. And I was like, so what? Well, that doesn't mean nothing to me. He's like, well, I got certifications. Can I run a crane? I said, no, not out here in the field. You can go to the yard and you can run any crane in the yard you want to. My philosophy is, if you're in the yard, get your ass in a crane, run it, play with it, do whatever you want to with it, scope it out, swing it, whatever. You're in an environment where you're not on a customer's property and there's no liability. That's what I did. Every opportunity I was in the yard, I was in a crane. And it got to the point where I would just out on locations, I had an operator that gave me a chance to get in the crane and give me some seat time, and I took it until they told me what I told y'all before, that they didn't want to break me out. So I left. But all of my career has been on the job training, and I don't think crane school goes far enough in training, period. I mean, they teach a test, and that's all they teach. They don't teach real world, like you said, Chris, real world practicalities or anything. So I don't have a lot of faith in crane schools, but Travis, tell us about the apprenticeship in the union.
Well, honestly, I didn't go through the apprenticeship to say, but I have spent some time out at our training site. And a lot of the locals will fund their own, have their own training site where, your union costs and union dues that you pay into will help fund this area that you can go out and practice on. Now, I'm part of the International Union of Operating Engineers, so we do both crane and dirt equipment. And out there, you'll see it is kind of, our particular training site is subdivided into three areas. One is mechanical maintenance, one is dirt iron, yellow iron, such as bulldozers, excavators, and the such. And then on the other side, we have the crane and rigging. And you can call ahead, you make your reservations, and go out there, and that iron is yours to mess with under the supervision, guise of instructors. So it is a lot similar to a crane school without the price. And you'll get hands-on, you'll get seat time, and you'll be the ground guy, you'll be the guy in the seat, and then you and your partner will switch back and forth. on top of that, and that's just the local. The union has down in Texas, they have the larger academy, kind of to say, where they have a lot of equipment. Now I'm going to let Cariana talk about that because I believe she has some experience with going down to the big union's training site.
Now, in case y'all haven't caught our last episode, this is Cariana. She's new to our group, and she's a fairly new operator. And she's in the same union local as Kenny. Go ahead, Cariana.
Thank you. So I have been down to the international training site in Texas. I mean, it is incredible. They have 6 tower cranes alone.
Wow.
That is immense. Most locals are lucky to have one small, maybe 60, 70 foot tower crane. We have one of those at my local training site, but at the international, they have, 6 nearly 200 foot. They have self-erecting tower cranes and everything. They have crawlers with luffers. They have everything out there. They have pipes to practice picking up on and everything. I mean, it is the best of the best in the union come to teach and get you where you need to be.
That's awesome.
Every class has its own prerequisite. You have to get approved at your local level to even be able to go. You have to meet prerequisites. So obviously for the intro to crane class, you have to have no knowledge, but then you get the intermediate crane classes where you have to have a CCO to even get in the class. And these teach you, different aspects, setting iron, doing all these different things. And I mean, it is an incredible training site. But
now, how long is the apprenticeship program for a union operator?
Unfortunately, I also did not go through the apprenticeship. I tested in and became a journeyman through the dirt side of things. But I think it's 4 or 5 years now. But in my local personally, it doesn't necessarily involve cranes at all. I did everything on the job.
Go ahead, Travis.
All right, so the apprenticeship it's designed as a 3-year course and 6 phases, and ideally every 6 months you're supposed to notch up to the next level. So you do one every 6 months, you'll complete it in 3 years. And roughly, and this is starting from absolute scratch, like no experience, no CDL, no CCO, nothing. You start from basics, you'll start in level 1. But you're able to test out and try to, depending on your knowledge and what certifications you have and what experience you have, you can test out into level 4. I've seen guys test into 5 to 6, or like myself with prior military experience, be able to test out of the apprenticeship altogether. Now, that being said, once you're either in the apprenticeship or have been journeyed out, it is up to the company that you've been dispatched to determine what you're going to do, like what you're going to operate in, whether or not you're going to oil, or they'll give you a seat.
Okay.
So, because the companies have pretty much, they more or less have the end-all, say-all on where you're going to, what you will actually be running.
Yeah. Now, Chris, you work at a crane school. What is that environment like? Like the classroom environment, the hands-on, and the length of time before y'all send them out?
To be honest, where I currently work at, I would say structured. I do really very much like the presentation of the core material, the load charts, and the knowledge that you need to have and absorb. I would say it's very structured. Now, I kind of specialize in the hands-on part of the school. When you come out to the machine, I try to I tell all the students every time they get on a new piece of equipment, it's like, hey, I want you to focus on the basics. I want you to boom up and down and hold the load. I said, it's not about you learning to boom up and down and hold the load, but you're learning the controls on that machine
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get a feel for it. Because as y'all all know, we could have 10 of the same modeled crane and they're all going to run a little bit differently. So for our school, I would have to say the biggest advantage of coming to us would be structure and repetition. And if I had to say that there was a side that I'd like to see an improvement in, is a little bit more of the hands-on. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm finding that some of the hands-on is a limitation for us just based on liability and insurance. I
exactly.
can't have the students pull the jib off a carry deck and erect a jib if they're not covered under insurance policy for something like that.
Yeah,
I can show them, and it's like, hey, and you just stand over there, put your hands in your pocket. But most of the people that come to our school, they're really hands on. The hardest thing for them to do is do nothing and watch.
yeah.
So,
That's a disadvantage, especially like Louisiana Crane, where I worked and you worked. They had all the truck drivers all at once go get their CCOs. They went to crane school, got their CCOs, boom, they're right in a crane. And that just ticked me off because someone like me and all of y'all paid your dues. You come up the right way, and then somebody just butts the line. That's my problem with crane school. Any Joe can come off the street and go to crane school and get a CCO, and then find some unlucky company and get right into crane. And maybe they're a good operator. Maybe they'll be a damn good operator, but maybe one of them's gonna flip a crane or kill somebody or kill themselves. So that's my problem with crane school. It doesn't teach enough. It doesn't teach the real world applications far enough, like apprenticeship that y'all have to go through. Travis, you got a point?
Yeah, no, Dave, I agree with you 100%. Like schools, and I'd like to go and talking about like my experience with the military's school because it's similar to Dave's experience, or not Dave, Chris's crane school. Is that schools are great and they give you the basics and they give you general knowledge. Even like the apprenticeship itself, because you need to go there for a set number of hours in order to advance, and that's very helpful, and it'll give you scenarios to work on that are what you will most likely catch out in the field. Unfortunately, not a single one of those could replace actual time under the hook out in the world making for-profit picks, more or less, because
Exactly.
you're dealing with somebody else's product. You are not in a controlled situation. The variables, there are so many variables in any and every situation that almost makes no two picks the same. Especially when your customer is different every single time. You get different personalities out there. You get different product out there. At the end of the day, nothing can replace on-the-job experience.
Well, no two picks are the same anyway, Travis. You're booming down or you're swinging left, you're swinging right, you're booming up. It's all different, and you got to be paying attention to a million different things at the same time. That is a good crane operator. That is a good equipment operator. You have to be able to muscle memory your controls and keep your eye on everything around you all at once. And like I said, guys coming from crane school, they don't get that real world knowledge because they haven't done on job training. They haven't been in the field doing this. Some of them have, but most of them haven't.
Absolutely, and it's when you make the exact same pick, the piece is in the same spot, the crane is set up in the same spot, and you're going from A to B to C and back again. You don't get the diversity that you need for the real world. Like I spent 4 weeks in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, to go to the United States Army's crane school. Was a good course for what it is. I'm not going to lie. The instructors were phenomenal. The cadre were great. And being that it's a military school, they're really only going to teach you what you need for the military. And the military has, right now they have one type of crane, two types of cranes. One is going away, one is coming in. It's the old school, which was it's a 22-ton AT truck mount, and that one's headed out. Now they're bringing in kind of an off-the-shelf Grove GMK 4060, which 4 axles. It's a 60-ton crane, kind of a 60-ton AT, a GMK, but instead they chopped the length off the boom and they brought the cab about 4 feet off the ground. So
remember that 4090, Chris?
Pretty cool.
That I had to drive to Louisiana.
Oh, I very vividly remember chasing you on that. One of the things I wanted to comment on, just kind of backtracking slightly, is the school that I work at, or any school that goes by NCCCO guidelines, what we have to do is tell NCCO what crane we have. They will look up the load chart to that crane, and they will send us a CAD drawing that has to be within a quarter of an inch when we pull measurements on it. So that crane, and I understand the necessity of it because it makes sense. If you go to New York, New Jersey, South Dakota, you're taking the same test. I can fully appreciate the standardization of it, but what it takes away from the learning experience at a crane school, we can't move our machines. We can't really teach a student coming in, hey, this is how you run the outriggers. This is how you level a crane. This is how you drive a crane around with a jib erected. Or there's so many limitations that we can't teach. We've had students get jobs, and then they'll call us and say, hey, do you mind if I come by the school and you kind of go over with like how to set the machine up and how to move it? And I'm like, initially when I first got those few phone calls, I was like, wow, this is something we haven't gone over. Really? We need to incorporate that. And now I understand why our hands are kind of tied. We kind of can't. So
now, Kenny, you and I, Kenny's here, y'all, but you and I have gone, and Travis, we have all discussed the same point over and over and over about NCCCO. They need to reorganize the NCCO. It needs to be totally redone. The testing qualifications need to be all changed. It needs to be stronger, and the hours of verifiable, documented hours have to be honest.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. So, and especially because it doesn't cover nearly the amount of stuff. It doesn't cover nearly the amount of equipment. All right, like we could get into a swing cab. TLL, hydraulic swing cab. What does that mean? That means like I could go anywhere from a boom truck up to an 11200 full jib, full luffer. I mean, you even just get into a luffer itself should be its own endorsement.
Well, I'll tell you, they were going to do certification per tonnage.
And see, that's not a bad idea.
But all the manufacturers came together and they fought the CCO.
Well, yeah, because then that's harder to get operators in the seat.
Exactly.
And I think that's a lot of the big push that gets overlooked is, the industry we need. There's more of the need is great for operators and basically buttholes in the seat than it is for anything else. So the quicker we can get people to pass the test, the faster, the better we can put somebody in the seat, and we'll just deal with we'll cross the bridges when we get to them. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the mentality that takes away from the pride of the industry, the old school pride that we used to have in, like I've mentioned many times, getting the old timer to pat you on the back and say good job. That was like, dude, if that grumpy old school guy told you good job, that was like the highlight of the year, as you was coming up. And that's all to the wayside because we need to fill these seats now. And the problem with it is, and I've talked with Chris about this, and I understand the NCCO side of it. They're trying to build a structure, but there needs to be more levels of it. There needs to be more definition. There needs to be tonnage up to like a classify up to 100 tons to 200 tons to 3. You ain't got to do per tonnage of crane because there's so many varieties. There needs to be classes, certifications for swinging the jib, for doing this, that, and or OSHA needs to step in and push more certifications within the company, so the companies are now held a little more responsible for making sure that their individuals are trained, instead of just saying, "Oh, you got the card, we can get away with having you in the seat."
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the companies are just as responsible as the people that go from teaching a math class at the end of summer to running the crane at the beginning of the next school year. The companies are just as responsible and liable for putting that person in there. So
that would take care of a lot of problems, not just in the crane side, but just in heavy industry as a whole, if companies were more liable for their employees in mistakes. I mean, you're talking about, putting the faster we churn out operators as fast as we can just to fill seats and just fill a market that's in demand. Pride is the last thing that we really need to be worrying about. It's more or less safety. How many cranes are going to wind up on crane wrecks news? I'm sorry, Dave. I was going on a tangent there because this is.
I know you're passionate just like me.
But, yeah. Go ahead.
What is the union's hours before they turn you to journeyman? What is that?
103 is 4 years, 2,000 hours a year. You can test out early. You've got to have 8,000 hours, I believe, in the local. In the apprenticeship before you can test out, along with testing on different equipment and things of that nature.
But you're oiling at that point, or are you actually running the crane during that time?
Ish. There have been crane operators to fill the demand of seats, and I will say that they do try to not put them into situations that's going to ruin their careers from the beginning.
Yeah, they're not going to put them in a tilt wall job.
But then again, they will. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like Ariana touched on earlier, our union is so focused on getting people in and trained on all the different equipments that, like, even, grader hands and dozer hands take pride in their work. Even those kids coming up into that are not putting up the same quality as work or the same respect to the industry because they're being pushed like, nope, just hurry up and get out there and do it. Just get close and we'll deal with it later type of mentality.
Wait, I have seen oilers, that apprentices with CCOs run out in their own crane on single man rigs. It's not horribly uncommon, but we got to be in a bind to do it. And it's your high end apprentice. It's the ones that are finishing up their apprentice, your fifth year, your sixth year. Those are the guys, and maybe that's the time. Maybe that is about the time you start handing responsibility over to these kids and start giving them the simple jobs. They just set up the crane, you pick up a unit, you go up 30 feet, you go out 30 feet, you set it down, you're within 25% of chart the entire time. That's how you start building that confidence. That's how you start building that experience. Yeah. Only one time have I seen an apprentice take over a big crane. It was a 245, but the kid had oiled on it for 4 years now. So when that operator went off and he literally was the most experienced person in order to do it. The problem that we're having into is the accounted hours to move on to your next level are accounted at the training site. And that's taking up that's 8 hours on your Saturday that you're not getting paid. So that is the difficult part with the apprenticeship, is the fact that, all right, I could go spend 8 hours at the training site and accumulate hours so I could advance to the next level, or I could work my crane on Saturday for 8 hours and get paid. So that is the give and take of the apprenticeship.
See, I think employers should be held accountable, and I think there has to be some kind of computerized system that's not cheatable. You need at least 1,500 hours, certified hours, on a crane, piece of equipment, in that yard, because you don't have your CCO yet, or out in a field in a controlled environment, 1,500 to 2,000 hours before you can even get your CCO card. Because these operators they're turning loose now, they maybe have 40 hours on a crane.
See, and unfortunately, how are you going to prove that? That's everything's there. It's I don't know, man. There's no right answer to this.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to actually get verification, and that's why responsibility has to come down to the company owners.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Well, let me say this. When I got my CCO in 2005, and I remember when I took it, I had to provide verifiable proof of 2,000 hours of operating experience to take the test through the course that I took it through. Did that go away? Because I remember initially CCO
it did
was
not go away.
swing
It did not
cab
go
and
away.
fixed cab.
They give you a log book, and you're supposed to log your hours, but nobody logs their hours.
In the grand scheme of things, what about, like, we're in such need of people? I kind of get it. How can you get experience if you don't have experience? I mean, that's a debate that can be had on any subject under the sun.
Now, I will tell you a certification that is tougher than the CCO, and that's the NCCER. They actually make you swing a jib. They make you
string a block
together, string a block, set the crane up and level it. They make you do all of that.
Pick up an oblong pipe or load. I don't remember how it's worded, but you had to rig something that was out. It wasn't just a straight run of pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have my NCCR advanced rigging, and I remember when I took that, and then I took the CCO equivalent, and I'm like, wow.
And that is a hard test. Even for the crane operator test is even harder than the rigger one, because you got to do all kinds of stuff.
I will say that was the one nice thing about the military school, is that being that the Army only has one crane. So we studied that one crane. We knew that one crane inside and out. In order to get to the school and get your crane certification, you had to set up the crane. You had to throw the jib. You set parts of line. You know, what was the cadre feeling right then and there? Did he want 3 parts of line? Did he want 8 parts of line? You know, how was he feeling that day? You ran that crane through obstacle courses. You know, you crab steered, you 4-way steered, you ran it through high water marks. How does it operate? So that I will give it that the military's crane school set us up a lot, because we picked up pulls, we used spreader bars, moved connexes. They tried to at least show you what you would be experiencing for the military, though.
Yeah.
That's the only kicker.
Now, Carriana's phone died. I think she shot it or threw it across the room or something, but her phone died, so she's no longer with us. And now it is time for our Picking in the Blind. If you haven't been with us before, Picking in the Blind is something off-topic, non-industry related, that gets everybody talking and conversing back and forth. So today is going to be our special guest, the Hack Job .official on TikTok. And go ahead, Kenny.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said, Carriana's phone died, so I guess I'll handle the this portion that we like to call Picking in the Blind. That was cool, wasn't it?
That was epic. I like it.
So for today's question of picking in the blind, it's actually one that I've been kind of pondering on for a while. So you look at your dog or your cat or your pet hamster or whatever kind of pet you got, and they're just sitting there staring off into the abyss, and you're sitting there looking at them, and you're like, they're over thinking about something. What language do you think that animal thinks in? Do you think they think in the language you talk to them? Do they think woof woof or meow meow, or are they just kind of blowing spit bubbles in their head? You know, has that ever crossed y'all's mind?
Oh, all the time. And granted, I went through 7 hamsters as a child, so I could only imagine what these hamsters were thinking. I have a cat right now, and it's
Not him. No.
Yeah, seriously. I've had hamsters commit suicide before. It was pretty traumatic. Anyways, the cat that I have now, sometimes I have no idea what she's thinking. But I do like to think that she meows or tries to communicate in English. Like I always wonder, like if you would get a dog, like if Connor had a dog, does that dog bark with a British accent? Like seriously,
Travis, I know what your cat is thinking. Your cat is thinking, why doesn't he get more hamsters?
dude, we let the cat out today. My wife was admiring this beautiful butterfly. She came up to me, this beautiful butterfly landed on a thing, and then the cat comes out of nowhere and shreds this butterfly.
Nice.
Oh, my wife was sad. She was like, I've never seen a butterfly like that before, and the cat ate it.
Go ahead, Chris.
And I was like, good.
Okay, I've been an animal owner in some capacity pretty much my entire life, whether it was horses, cats, dogs. I will tell you that animals generally respond more to tone than verbiage of, yeah, if you tell a cat, a dog, a horse, no in a very stern voice, they're probably going to stop what they're doing. But in what language do they think? I don't know. I think maybe they think more in tones and what comes after those tones to how they're treated.
You know, I have a very young daughter that isn't talking yet, and I wonder if it's the same thing.
I think because I could go up to my dogs and I could talk in, you know, how you talk to your dogs in a playful, kind, happy voice and call them shitheads and dirtbags and meat sacks and just be throwing insults in a nice, happy, and they're all, nah. But as soon as you, like Chris said, as soon as you get a stern voice or yell at them, they're, so I think they talk in emotions is what I think.
They respond to voices or tonality, because you can tell your dog the most horrific things. Oh, you're going to be a pipe fitter when you grow up, aren't you?
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
just sitting there waving their tail, and they're so excited, and they have no idea. And it's like the worst insult you could tell a dog, that they're going to be a pipe fitter in their life.
Get put down today.
Who's got a ticket for the Rainbow Bridge?
Damn. I saw TikTok. A guy did that. He's like, you know, and he explained the exact same thing. And he's like, he looked at his dog, and he did it for the TikTok, but he immediately turned around and started loving it. But he was like, I love you so much. You're the most precious thing I ever had. And he was like real loud, and the dog like cowered down and was like running away. Then he looked at her and he goes, come here, you ignorant, that about it, and started insulting the dog, but was loving it. The dog was just licking his face and having fun. He's like, animals don't know what you're saying. They're responding to you, to the tone of your voice and the presence of your being.
Yeah,
my question is the way an animal communicates with another animal, is that universal around the globe? Like, back to what I was saying, you know, does an English dog and an American dog bark in the same language?
Well, I can tell you that the sound that two cats that don't know each other make when one jumps up on the workbench to eat and the other one's already there is pretty daggone universal.
I feel like that kind of happened tonight, huh?
Like 2 days ago, I heard the most god-awful screaming. I forgot that our outdoor cat was in the garage eating, and then our other cat, which they get along, they respect each other's areas, but one didn't know the other was at the food bowl and jumped up, and it was the most god-awful squalling I've ever heard. And I go out in the garage, and they're both, like, one's on the floor laying there, like, terrified, and the other one's up by the food bowl, terrified. It was pretty universal to me.
Oh, all right, well.
Well, I mean, dogs and cats go around sniffing each other's butts, but
so dogs. Dog will lick its friend's butt.
They talk
and
to
lick
each
you
other in submission. They talk to each other in body language, vocal by barking or meowing, and
Scent, yes. Sounded like a pretty good podcast. I want to thank everybody for chiming in and listening to this. And by all means, don't forget to help us grow this with sharing it, subscribing to it, liking it, whatever it takes. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And by all means, the more comments we get, give us ideas. We'll be happy to put them on the air here, especially if you have some picking in the blind ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't go around sniffing each other's butts.
Yeah. And remember, we're on all your
Tell
favorite
me how to
streaming
live
apps.
my freaking life, Dave. You don't know my fetishes.
Shut up, Travis. I'm going to plug Mr. Furry.
Okay.
We're on all of the streaming apps, Spotify, Podbean, Apple, Google, YouTube. We're on all those too. So whatever you want to listen to a podcast on, we're probably there. So make sure you look us up, like us, follow us, rate us, all that good stuff. So
And look for our quick picks coming out Mondays. And we have a new episode every Thursday at noon.
Gentlemen, on behalf of Carriana, it's been fun.
It's been real. It's been fun. Just been real fun.